Students of Reddit, what is your best school life hack? If you need to participate in group discussion but aren't sure about the material, ask intelligent questions instead of trying to answer what you don't get. It'll buy you time and you'll still be participating. See the professor/TA during their office hours if you need extra help understanding something. No one comes to office hours and they're usually really happy to help. Story 2. My classmate took up a strict 9 to 5 school schedule, right from the first semester. Every day he would work 9 to 5. He was either in class, working on homework, or studying if he got everything done. At 5 p.m. he'd pack up his stuff and he was done for the day. He had all his homework done way ahead of schedule and never had to pull all-nighters or waste weekends on homework. He was never stressed out or anything like that because he would spend time studying when he wasn't slammed with homework. I could never manage it because I'd rather procrastinate and start 3 hours before it was due, but it seemed like the best way to do it. Edit to answer the flood of questions. This was in computer programming. We did get projects estimated at like 60 hours a week later in the course, but by then he was so far ahead of everyone else that he could start working on them as soon as they were assigned and knew the content so well that he still didn't have to work outside of his core hours, while I was pulling multiple all-nighters in the lab trying to catch up. Yes, you might need more time based on your program. The point is to get into a routine and use your time effectively. He didn't have a job because school is affordable where I live, and we were in a co-op program where you work every other semester and can save up some money. But he did take contract work to do in the evenings/weekends for some cash, and would have had every night and weekends to work if he wanted to do so. Yeah, anyone who operates like this is a superhuman to me. I get the value of setting a schedule and sticking to it. It can really help productivity, whatever. I know, but I simply cannot do it. I'm with OP. Procrastinating and starting 3 hours before it's due was definitely my school strategy. Not that I would recommend it. Story 3. If you don't know how to study or have a hard time getting yourself to do homework, get a friend to buddy with. My ADHD butt can't study to save my life. But if my friend is in the room concentrating on it, I feel like I don't want to be left out. So I'll buckle down and we're on the same page. If you can't manufacture executive function, peer pressure is fine too. Story 4. College instructor here. Here are my best tips for getting good grades in my classes. 1. Read your syllabus. It'll tell you what the assignments are and how much they're worth for your total grade. So if you're in a situation where you're in a time crunch and have to choose between two, you can do the one that's worth a larger percentage of your grade. Not that I advise skipping homework, but if you have to, you have to. 2. Get a calendar and plan ahead. At the beginning of term, you should write down when the tests are, but also the due dates of large projects. Then, working backward, set milestones about how far you should be on the project so you don't procrastinate and try to cram it in all at the end. Once you have a plan set up, follow it. 3. Do the work with the intent of the question in mind, not the literal wording. Instructors aren't always perfect in their wording, so if a question says something like, do an internet search for software to help you in whatever discipline, and explain what you find. Do what you know your professor is asking. Don't just write, I did a Google search and a bunch of links came up. You won't get points for being clever. 4. Use correct grammar and spelling. You'll get a bad grade if I have to decode your answers. 5. Don't use services like Quillbot or Chegg. If your answer comes too close to the textbook company's answer on a short answer question, you're going to get flagged as a potential plagiarist. And I'm going to watch your answers like a hawk for the rest of the term. Just do the work as assigned. It's not that hard. Unless you're going into medicine or physics or something like that, in which case it is hard, but you still need to learn it. So do the work anyway. 6. Do projects outside of school that are related to your field of study. This stuff stands out in a big way when it's time to get a job. When an interviewer asks, what did you do outside of class? And you can say you worked on a project related to your field, you'll see the interviewer's eyes light up. 7. Learn how to eat like an adult. A lot of people never learn how to do this. Good nutrition will not only keep your weight in check, but you'll have more energy during the day, and for study sessions at night. And coffee is not equal to energy. 8. Learn to drink like an adult. Binge drinking will make you feel awful, and you will take days to recover. Have a good time, but know your limits and be safe. 9. Don't come to class high. I will know, and you'll be branded as the kid who comes to class high. 10. Use the opportunity to meet people that aren't like you. Well, it sounds corny, but we all live in our own bubbles, and school is a great place to learn about cultures unlike your own. Good luck, students. Story 5. Find time to get some exercise in. All that grab-and-go/fast food catches up to you fast. I got fat as hell in college and have since lost all that weight. I wish I made time to at least squeeze in a 30-minute workout every other day. Story 6. How about how to actually write a decent essay? There's all sorts of college hacks out there, but what about the one that makes everybody squirm? Once you learn how to write a college paper, you'll want to die a little less. Read below. First fundamental rule. Schmooze the professor by agreeing with his logic. Come on, easiest trick in the freaking book. Don't be a total suck-up, though. Also, avoid big-ticket issues if you get some freedom with topics. Do you really think your professor wants to read another paper on abortion or gun rights? You need to be a hipster here to get some attention. Though, I have to admit, writing an essay explaining the benefits of slavery to my Black African Studies professor was just awkward. I chose the economics route. There's a reason the Confederacy couldn't produce jack crap for firearms during the Civil War, and it has a lot to do with the lack of mechanization. Every essay of any given length starts with a general set of rules that must be known and applied. Failure to do so will result in suffering and poor grades. 1. Avoid unnecessary bullcrap. Does that sentence need to go there? No? Get rid of it! Or move it. Students tend to write stupid, irrelevant crap in a futile attempt to pad their essays. If you follow the instructions, you won't need to pad your essays because there will already be enough padding in them. If it is truly relevant but only has one sentence, consider exploring it further. It may fan itself out into an entire paragraph. 2. No I or me statements unless requested by the professor. Third person only. Need a feel for this? Read a few academic articles on the subject of your choosing. Notice how things are written. It's rather dry, unfortunately, but it gets A's. 3. Correct formatting is a must. Thankfully, templates are available online for all major academic formatting styles, meaning you can focus on typing and then slapping it into the template document at the end. Again, as mentioned in the prior post, citation machine is a must. Cite your works as you go. Keep a copy of cited works for yourself if you can. The Purdue OWL is a must. Your professor is going to make you buy the APA/MLA/Chicago Tribune book. You'll likely never read it because all that information is concisely written on the internet, and more specifically on the Purdue OWL, with a nicely formatted sample text, so you can figure out how to cite a page in your essay text and move on with your life. 4. Run your crap by your teacher at least once, preferably twice. Around when half to 3/4 of the work is done. They can prevent catastrophic screw-ups. Nothing is worse than having to rewrite a paper in 3 days. 5. Understand that this process takes time. You will still fail horribly if you try all of this in one night. Pace it out over 2 weeks, though 3 is best if you can afford the time. That way you can muse on the work and get some nice solid ideas for analysis. Half my decent ideas came at the bus stop or while walking home from class. You can't squeeze out really good ideas like that if it's 3 a.m. and you're in the library. 6. A correctly written academic paragraph can run at least 10 to 20 sentences. It gets worse if you can actually explain it in detail. 7. Understand that at the end of it all, you really are just polishing a turd. And since Mythbusters proved you can do such a thing, you can too. 8. Ideally, you'll want to have some ideas listed out. Since drawing diagrams and storyboards and all that seemed like stupid, pointless bullcrap to me, I simply wrote down a shopping list of ideas that would form each paragraph. Not a lot of detail, usually 1 or 2 core sentences, but it's a start. 9. Unless your university's writing workshop is in cahoots with your professor and their associated assignments, don't expect them to help you actually think of what ideas to write about. Not only that, but most of the time they're swamped before a big essay is due, and wait times are long. They will not have time to help you write your essay in any meaningful way, and even if you do set up an appointment, it is usually not at an optimal time. 10. This isn't a catch-all formula. This generally works for most humanities classes where it is expected that you read some stuff, analyze it, and write a paper. In more technical areas, it still works, but you'll have to tweak it a bit. So your first piece is going to be the introduction. This section is of importance, not in terms of your content, but with how you set the stage for your reader, e.g. the professor. Psychologists have noted that people are able to remember only the first and last parts of anything, including lists, books, movies. Who remembers the end of a movie in detail but are kind of fuzzy on the rest of the details? I know I do. So make sure the first and last parts are decently written. As Judge Judy says, you only get one first impression. Don't screw it up. Luckily, you actually have some flexibility here, which is a luxury. You have to introduce the topic, and you can usually do this in a variety of ways. Personally, I start by rattling off some statistics, numbers, or facts in a clever yet academically professional way, or maybe tossing in some tangentially related anecdote. A good first sentence sets the stage, though, so pay attention to that. Be creative. After that, there's the introduction of the topic, the issues to be covered, and thesis sentence. It's what you're going to be trying to prove or disprove. This should be the last sentence in your paragraph. No analysis here, though. Then it's just a chain. A long, stupid chain of the same crap over and over and over and over until you reach your conclusion. You'll transition cleverly into the subject of your next paragraph, and don't skip this crap. Transitions take the clunkiness out of your essay. One of the first things that can be noticed about bullcrap XYZ is that stuff like that. While your intermediary paragraphs will have a transition that references the last paragraph and somehow ties it into the last one. While XYZ was interesting, characters Jerry and Gobabar are important as well for a variety of reasons. One of these reasons is blah 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 blah. I'm too lazy to come up with an example. Once you get your transitions out of the way, you just start rattling off your supporting pieces. This includes quotes, citations, and an explanation of evidence. Just keep barraging them until the next piece. There may be some mild explanation here, but don't get too analytical. That's the next part. Each piece of evidence should be transitioned with additionally, secondly, finally, even further, and furthermore, before you discuss each piece of evidence. Use them tastefully, and hit the thesaurus once in a while to prevent word fatigue. This is a common problem where students use the exact same word or phrase multiple times because they're being unoriginal. This is a problem because it tires the reader and sounds terrible. Don't do that. If you learn nothing else from reading this, understand how powerful these little words can be in getting a decent sentence in your paragraph. I've noticed in my college years the crappiest essays I've ever read from my peers did not include these phrases. While including them doesn't guarantee an A per se, it certainly adds a pizzazz that good essays have. Again, we must focus on polishing the turd. Last section of the paragraph is the analysis. You'll circle back around to your supporting pieces and then somehow tie them back into your thesis in some fashion. But you actually have to analyze them and come to some deeper conclusion than anything superficial. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time, and honestly, you're most likely completely missing the point of the entire assignment. You are not writing a book report. Remember that. That's for elementary school. We are talking about the underlying social themes of a book. The significance of someone's actions on a political movement, stuff like that. This is where you actually look at something and realize there's more than meets the eye. Rinse and repeat. Eventually you'll hit the limit. Don't go to the minimum ever. That's for lazy students mostly. Finish it when you're finished, unless you have a maximum. I struggled with these, honestly, and usually begged the professor for an extension limit, and they would usually oblige to see what you would spit out. The conclusion is merely a recap of your essay, in which you will reiterate briefly over your analysis/evidence and how it pertains to your thesis. It is not a very important piece, but it needs to be well written nonetheless. As for grading, it comes down to a few things. Your professor may have a template for grading your paper, or they may just go off instinct. Most times they both play in, especially when they have to grade 100 or more. If nothing else, if you've been a decent, respectful student who came to office hours besides the days before the paper was due, and at least made some effort to show interest, it'll help a lot. I've even heard from professors that a student who busts their butt can get a bump of at least a letter grade. That makes a C- paper a B-, even if their paper was poor and barely grasped anything the professor gave lecture on. This is the formula. There is still quite a bit of subtlety to writing a decent paper, and I think a lot of students struggle with it even into the formative years of college. I think one of the worst things people do is write what they're thinking. This is actually quite easy to spot, especially from someone who writes a lot in their free time. People tend to write run-on sentences a lot, so it comes off as mixed garbage. Parse back through your polished turd once in a while and edit as you read it. It kind of helps. Friends also add a nice perspective. Speaking of college, I feel like I just got lectured. Not like in a bad way necessarily, there was a lot of good information in there, although not helpful for me at all anymore. But hopefully helpful for some of you. Anyway, thank you OP for this absolute monster of a post. Story 8. For math/physics majors, learn how to use LaTeX early. It will save you a ton of time in the long run, and you'll need to know it for grad school anyway. I personally recommend LYX for problem sets, since it helps you see what you're writing live. Also, learning how to use Mathematica really well saved me countless times when I wasn't smart enough to do the math by hand. Story 9. All my college student friends out there, make sure you give yourself enough time to sleep every day. Get a little exercise when you can too. It helps relieve stress and works to counter all the cup of noodles you're likely chowing down on. Personal hygiene is huge. Shower every day. Brush your teeth, wash your hands. It'll make you happier, and believe me when I say that people can absolutely tell when you don't do these things, regardless of how well you try to mask it with a deodorant or gum. It may be tempting to relax first and wait to do projects or papers later before they're due, but if you do the opposite, you'll find there is way less stress involved. Meal prep is a great way to make sure you're eating well while saving as much time as possible during the week. Talk to your instructors, get to know them. Their advice can be invaluable in knowing what they expect in the classwork and homework. And after you graduate, you'll want to ask them for letters of recommendation for jobs. If you don't have a relationship with them, they're less likely to give you one. Likewise, talk with your classmates. Lifelong friends are made in college, sometimes in the most unlikely circumstances/classes. I was a history major and met one of my best friends in a seminar class about genocide. We went out for ice cream and watched cartoons after each class to cheer ourselves up. And now, 9 years later, we still meet up once a week for ice cream. Remember that no matter how stressed you get, how hopeless things may seem when the world seems to be putting you under as much pressure as possible, there are always people out there who care and who want to help you. Most colleges have student counselors who you can talk with for free and get things off your chest. The college where I work also has a Zen den where you can go to relax, sit quietly in a beanbag chair or hammock, and just get away from things for a minute. Chances are yours might have similar resources for students. And finally, always remember, you are loved. You are enough. You are beautiful. You are worthy. You are irreplaceable. Story 10. Throw yourself into the course. Network like a maniac. Help out on projects that are tied to professional businesses. Volunteer. Long gone are the days of being paid to start the best band in the world. You are paying for a service, so get the most out of it. Or don't go and get a job instead. Master that. Make cash money. Train and get qualifications. Or screw about with the minimum wage job, do the festivals, travel, hike up mountains, and camp under the stars. Join the greatest band in the world, or learn to paint. Do something while you learn what you really want to do. Oh, and mostly, wear sunscreen. Story 11. No homework? Corrupt a file and say that was it. Just pretend to be ill. Get out a load of paper/worksheets on the table and fake a breakdown trying to find it. Works easier with girls or beta males. Soak your book in water and rip up the pages, but not completely. Go to the lesson and say someone soaked your bag and everything is ruined. Cheating. For writing tests, such as Spanish, get 2 pieces of paper and put one on top of the other. Then firmly write your response and there should be an indent. Then simply sneak this into the test and write over the indent. Make a prison scroll, aka get a really small piece of paper and with a sharp pencil write all the info you need. Fold/roll it up and hide this under your watch, in a dictionary, pencil case, in a pen, or anywhere you can. Just don't get caught looking incessantly in your pencil case, etc. Fire alarm. It works. Just get a kid in the younger year to pull it for you or trip into it. Even better, find one where there isn't a camera. Get a copy of the test beforehand by either stealing it or asking an older student if they still have their copy. Go to the toilet and go on your phone. If the teacher makes you leave your phone, hand in your trap phone and go to the toilet. Getting out of trouble. Cry, boy or girl. The more passionately, the better. Make sure they understand how badly you're getting bullied, but you can't say their names as you aren't a snitch. Deny everything. If there's no actual evidence, they can't punish you. For example, I swore in class and got sent to the head. Overreaction, am I right? And when asked what I'd done, I said, honestly, don't know. And when the teacher came to snitch on me, I protested my innocence and denied it all. Caution, it may make your teacher detest you, but it's worth it. Have a convenient asthma attack. And if you're a girl and it's a male teacher, girl problems usually sorts everything out. Miscellaneous. Carry a trap phone to hand in whenever you're required to, including if it's going to get confiscated. For fun, you may want to consider setting an alarm every minute. My crappy Nokia had a setting where you could turn them all on at once, making it all the easier. Don't let anyone know they've upset you. It only makes them happier, and we don't want idiots to be happy, do we? Don't trust anybody. In year 7, I started with one group of friends. I'm in year 13 now and with completely different friends. Everyone can betray you, and they probably will. In a fight, make sure you don't start it and hurt them enough to make sure nobody else will bother you. But don't fight someone you are clearly going to lose to. If you do get attacked, though, and genuinely fear for your life, a swift kick to the nuts or a throat punch and running will do the trick. Keyword is run, though. Always have some spare money and fair money, just in case. Don't waste all your money on crappy things. You don't need those sweets. Save up for that belt you've seen. Get a job. It's the best hack here, I swear. You get money, crap to put on your CV, experience, and it's always nice having a fat wallet. Make friends with the teachers if you can. They tend to help you out when you need it. For example, my maths teacher magically upped my predicted grade by 1. When you have a sub, make the most of it. Never do stupid crap for attention, it will come back to haunt you. Always get some other idiot to do the stupid crap. All the fun? No consequences. Don't flash your money or expensive stuff. People do steal. If you're going to do drugs, do your first few times in a safe environment. Same goes for alcohol. Don't be an idiot and throw up at parties. People stop inviting you. Make friends with someone who looks similar to you in the year above. You may want to borrow or buy their ID. Don't be a jerk to anyone. Never know when you might need a favor. Be organized from the start. Much easier in the long run. Do well in all tests. You may look like a sweat, but at least you're not that idiot who fails every test. Plus, if you fail the end of the year, it doesn't matter. Just say you had a bad day or felt ill. If you're going to skip school, this is a tip I read on Reddit. Get a real sick note off of your parents or guardians, then rewrite it in your own handwriting and hand it in. When your parents get a call about a fake note, they'll be like, nah, it's real, and from then on, you can write your own notes. Exercise, just be healthy in general. Make friends with everyone. A lot of people have parties, and you want that invite. Talking of parties, I have a gimmick. I read on Reddit about a guy who turned up to parties with a crap ton of alcohol and got invited to every one. Obviously, that's expensive, but find your gimmick. Learn to dance. Drink loads of water. Helps with spots. Also, wash your face with face wash every day. And brush your teeth, you dirty people. Just for the record, I don't know if I agree with everything OP has said here. The first two categories, I don't vibe with too hard. But in their last one, they talked a lot about just don't be a jerk, make friends with a lot of people, and that's pretty fine. But just for legal reasons, if you choose to cheat on your tests or whatever, Underspark does not take any responsibility for that. Story 12. Say you have an 8-page paper due, but you've only written about 7. Use the find and replace function in your word processor to replace all periods with a slightly larger one. So if your paper specifies 12-point font, change the periods to 14. This will likely get you to your 8 pages, and is very hard to detect in a hard copy. Story 13. Record lectures on your phone and listen to them while studying for tests. So many times in lectures you get so caught up in taking notes that you completely miss things the professor says. I've picked up on so many things that I totally missed in the notes but heard the professor say it in the recording. Also takes pressure off you to take crazy fast notes. A little addendum to this one, ask your professors first. I don't know if it's a law or a rule or anything, but it is just common courtesy to let someone know they're being recorded. Story 14. Download the mark schemes used for past papers and pick apart what the examiner is looking for as revision. Most exam boards in the UK, for GCSEs at least, used to be fairly easy to come by. Not sure if that's still the case. If the teacher uses PowerPoint and assuming it's not automatically online somewhere, perhaps ask for a copy of the presentation. Some teachers are willing to hand out copies of their own lesson notes/prep, depending on the level/subject/how nice they are. And I found this really helpful. If you've got a big project, don't leave it to the last minute, especially in subjects where time management is graded too. A-level/EPQ/level 3 BTEC in particular. Story 15. Consolidate each syllabus into a single calendar. I'm lazy, and I suck at working ahead. 1 hour up front saved my butt so many times. You probably have 3 exams on the same day during week 8. Figure that crap out now. Also, read your textbook before class. It will lead to less time studying overall and better grades. The lazy person reads the chapter before class. It's wisdom, not smarts. You'll understand more and have questions for class. Story 16. Get your hands on the test bank. Publishers release the textbook along with study guides and test banks to universities. 9.9 times, professors use the multiple choice and even long answers directly from the bank. It's probably not ethical, but it's definitely not illegal. My professors made 6 figures by copying and pasting their exams. If they can't take the time to write their own exams and test banks are easily accessible, I don't feel very bad for getting 95% on my own exam. Story 17. Study hygiene. It's like sleep hygiene, but for class. 1. Schedule the time to study. Schedule it during times you won't feel resentful or sleepy. Also, you can focus. Scheduling downtime during your life will help. 2. Have a to-study plan for all the material you need to go over and how you plan to review it. Are you just reading the book today, doing practice questions, etc.? 3. Pick an environment where you will be comfortable, not distracted, and not sleepy. Oh, your bed is comfy, but you may feel more tired or have trouble sleeping later if you develop association. Play rain sounds or white noise. Have healthy snacks as well. 4. Take frequent breaks so you don't overload your brain or get too bored to retain things. 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, times 3. Then 20 to 30 minute break to rest or take a walk. 5. Whatever time you choose to study, rest first. Even if it's last-minute study time the night before the test. Go to bed early for half the night at least, then get up early to study. Your brain retains better when it's not exhausted. I often go to bed for 4.5 hours, study for 3 to 4, go back to bed for 3 to 4.5 hours, study for 3 to 4, then go to the test. At no point during or after an all-night study session am I sleepy. 6. Why 3 to 4.5? A sleep cycle is approximately 1.5 hours. If you wake up between sleep cycles, you're less likely to be tired than waking up in the middle. Time your sleep periods for enough time to fall asleep, then enough time to be asleep in increments of 1.5 hours. I find 3 to 4.5 most satisfying. 7. Don't have large meals if you study overnight. Have small snacks. Also, limit the caffeine so you're able to rest. Have caffeine as you wake up, not to stay awake, because if you're struggling to stay awake, you'll get better results from another sleep period. That's pretty much it. This method has worked extremely well for me. Story 18. Former student, current teacher. Find a study group in every class and make regular appointments to meet. I'm terrible at doing homework if left to my own devices, but in a group, I'm far more productive. Additionally, they can help you understand the material you might have missed or didn't get the first time around. Corollary to this, make a friend in every class, possibly with an invitation to a study group. This will help encourage you to go to that class even if it's boring. You can still pass notes/texts to each other in class, and two people get more total information for sharing than one person. Know your peak smartness times and avoid classes at those times as much as you can. Sometimes not possible though. If you get sleepy in the early afternoon or find it hard to pay attention at those times, do not schedule a class at those times because, well, you'll skip them. If you have a rather long break between classes, don't go back to your dorm. Go sit in the back of a large lecture hall for an hour. I learned a lot of random crap doing that in college, and I was much better about getting to that second class if I sat in a lecture hall in between. Story 19. Save reports and essays so you might be able to reuse them later. 3-page essay about an open-ended topic? Just turn in the thing you wrote for last year's short fiction class. Be sure to proofread, check, and make sure it fits the current assignment, and make changes if needed. Won't work very often, but keep everything just in case. Story 20. Nuggets of knowledge I've learned from being an aerospace engineering junior. 1. Make friends with your teachers. I swear to God, you will gain nothing by antagonizing the guy in charge of your grades. Professors are there to help you treat them like people. 2. Sign up for tutoring in the first few weeks. Seriously, if you're waiting until the day before your first exam, congratulations. You and half the school all want the time and attention of a handful of busy people. You're not going to get the help you need. Go early, set up appointments, meet the people helping you, and get help as soon as you run into something you don't understand. 3. Read your syllabus. I know it makes for dry lecturing the first day of your classes, but that little packet of paper is your roadmap to the rest of your semester. Laminate that crap and save it. The last thing you need is to be blindsided by an exam you haven't studied for. 4. Buy a planner and use it. Kid you not, a daily planner will save your life and keep you on track. Write out your homework, when it's due, how much you want to do each day. It helps you figure out how much time you have so you can make better decisions regarding a night of binge drinking or actually doing one of the 10 assignments you have. Use the syllabus you laminated to keep track of your exams and when homework is due. 5. Study effectively. Do not force yourself to sit at your desk for 5 hours. That's not effective. The average attention span is about 25 to 30 minutes. You'll be able to focus and flow for that long, but then you'll start to lose it. The urge to check Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, whatever your poison, will grow until you can't resist. Forcing yourself to sit in one spot, pretending to work is painful and unproductive. Stop punishing yourself. Get up, stretch, go take a 5-minute walk, go pet your dog or cat, grab a snack, get some water, I don't care. Leave your desk. Walk away for 5 minutes, do something relaxing or enjoyable, and when you go to sit down again, you'll feel much more focused and ready to work. You will get it done faster, learn better, retain more, and just feel better. Trust me. By forcing yourself to study for 5 hours, you're really only doing effective work for 30 minutes and then spending 4.5 hours wasting your time in the most unpleasant way. Take a 5-minute break when you feel your flow starting to ebb. You'll get your homework done a crap ton quicker. This is backed up with science, called the Pomodori method of studying. Just doing this one thing will change everything about the way you study. I kid you not, the difference is astounding. 6. Stop engaging in the toxic burnout culture. I know you're busy, but we have this seriously toxic culture where you're not a real student unless you're slowly murdering yourself. Whether that's sleep deprivation, starvation, isolation, whatever burnout-inducing behaviors we actively and consciously engage in, stop it. Why the hell are we wasting our youths feeling like crap and hating ourselves? If you exercise even a tiny bit, you would have more energy and get your crap done. Get your crap done, go to bed at a decent time, get 8 hours of sleep, have even more energy, get your crap done faster, and now you have time to play video games and go out with your friends if you have any, or binge Netflix in addition to not feeling like slime. Just saying, exercise, eat well, make an effort to keep your friends, sleep every day for at least 8 hours if you can. You'll come out the other side wondering why the hell you were trying to give yourself burnout in the first place. I have many more, but I figure 6 is a good number to end on. Well, my friends and parents always blamed my studying habits on the fact that I was addicted to video games or whatever, but no, I stood by it. I would study for like 20 minutes to half an hour, and then I'd play a game and go back to it. And hey, guess what? I got the same grades as the majority of my peers. Taking breaks while studying truly is very important. Just working at something tirelessly will not get it done faster. Story 21. Google has a search engine for colleges. Slater has answers to almost every textbook problem with explanations. Eat freaking breakfast and eat a lot of it. Don't murder yourself after school. Do what you enjoy. Don't do too many drugs. Use your study hall, idiot. Don't study with other people if you just get distracted. Coffee is healthy. Don't get addicted to Adderall. If you think you're depressed or suffer anxiety, go see a counselor or psychologist. Have fun. It's still life and you gotta live it. Story 22. Take notes even if you never look at them later. Take notes while you complete your readings. It'll help cement things in your brain to summarize and paraphrase the key points of the content. Start early. Scan what's coming up next so you know approximately how much time the next reading, /chapter, /assignment will take, and plan your schedule accordingly. Don't let yourself be stuck rushing, /cramming, /all-nighting any more than you need to. Don't let the fear of a looming task freeze you into procrastination. When it comes time to midterms and finals, recognize when you've done all you can. Cramming isn't going to achieve much for you, and there always comes a point where if you keep going, you're going to freak yourself out and you're not gaining anything. Use that time to relax and rest so you're alert and ready come the exam. Story 23. Go above and beyond when possible. Talk to your professors after class /office hours. Write more than the minimum requirement on essays. Go over any given course materials that the professor gives you and inquire about those. If you present yourself as an exceptional student with enthusiasm regarding any given subject, most professors will be more inclined to give you a higher grade. This is coming from someone who currently has a 4.0 average as a junior. Story 24. Depending on where your school is, but in Canada, you could always ask for the grading rubric, the criteria for giving grades, for any assignment, and it's usually detailed. Then do the crappiest project, but satisfy every point on the rubric. The teacher is then forced to give you a great grade. It's hilarious. You can write a dissertation with some seriously generous intellect, and then get an F because you didn't satisfy some criteria. A criteria which, by the way, a festering tangle of morons, dimmer than 10-watt bulbs in series set for the next generation. Story 25. As an Asian subcontinent with relatively decent grades and all, just know that being good at a subject and getting good grades in exams can be two different things. Sometimes you gotta play the game and play the system and need to learn exam techniques to get better marks. If your examiner follows a particular pattern when it comes to the questions, make sure you nail it down. Prepare so your best case scenario lands you all the marks, and your worst case scenario still gets you decent grades. Story 26. When you have a large amount of reading to do, read the first and last sentence of each paragraph, the intro and the conclusion of each section/chapter. If the paragraph seems like it has a lot of important details, read the whole thing. This will save you a lot of time and you'll know the main arguments to speak or write about it. I did this mainly in grad school where I had 500 plus pages per week to get through. I also worked full time. I graduated with a 3.8. It works. Now, this is a hack that I can really get behind, because it really is a life skill learning to parse through which information is important and which isn't, and learning how to tell that at a glance is actually a super valuable skill. So this is learning in a different way, and I respect that. Story 27. Do your assignments the day they're assigned, even if they don't make sense. Just put something on the paper. Got a 15-page paper due in 2 months on non-Euclidean geometry's effect on Renaissance art? Don't know what that even means because your class hasn't gotten there yet? Who cares? Write something. Think about where your class is going, what's been mentioned so far, what you've read, and put it all down. Maybe you only get 10 pages and it's total crap. Whatever. You've done the bulk of the work. Now you're just editing. As you go through class, you'll hear something and think, oh hey, that's good for my paper. Add it. Oh man, the teacher just totally contradicted a point I was making. Change it. After that initial push, you're going to be looking at this thing at most for 15 minutes every day, and it's still going to be the best damn essay you ever wrote. Once you have something roughly completed done, take that rough draft to your professor's office hours. Let them know you've been working on it and you care about it, and your professors will love you. They have dedicated their lives to these topics, and it will inspire them to have students who at least seem to care. Sure, they can't tell you exactly what to write about, but they will steer you in the right direction. And you'll finish early. It'll feel easy, and you'll have loads of free time while all your friends are stressed. Story 28. Graduated a little bit ago, but about to start my master's. The two things above all others that helped me transition from an average student to dean's list was this. 1. Make your schedule work for you. If you aren't a morning person, don't take morning classes. 2. Become as friendly as possible with your professors. Have a big test coming up? Go hang out with your professor during their office hours. They literally are so excited to have company during that time. And they basically give you answers / tell you what you need to expect on the test. I once had a professor read my entire thesis since I was done early and they graded it on the spot, told me I would get a B-, said exactly what I needed to improve on, and pointed me to an awesome resource I didn't even think of. I got an A+. Treat them as more than just your professor and they will do the same. Can't tell you how many A's I've gotten from just going to office hours. Story 29. Look after your mental health. Anxiety/depression starts in your teenage years and can become prominent when you're in college. Go see a counselor 2 or 3 times a year. Usually those services are free on campus. Learn what the signs are for anxiety and depression. Make sure to look after yourself so you can perform to the best of your ability. I feel like this is one that's sort of talked about all the time. Like, schools put out those half-hearted efforts of like, take care of your mental health, come join in a, session where we're all going to get together and drink tea. Like, it seems like the thing to do now, where institutions like colleges will mention mental health and sort of chuck it off the list, right? But to actually look after it is something different entirely. And it's not easy either. Story 30. Even if your tests/exams don't allow cheat sheets, make them anyway. The act of deciding what is important enough to go on it and how to write it as concisely as possible is incredibly helpful revision. Use it for last-minute cramming, but for the love of glob, leave it in your freaking bag. You're not as stealthy as you think you are. Story 31. For history essays and most English classes, really, pick your quotes before you start drafting. Read your prompt. If you kept up with class, you'll quickly have an idea for thesis. Pull quotes and edit your rough thesis to match your findings. Type in your quotes with formatted citations. Type your sub-thesis above each quote. Jot some notes below. Boom, an outline. I generally then liked to have a printout next to me with more notes scribbled on it as I went, and just copy and pasting the quote over when I needed it. It helps the writing have better flow, but you can also just keep fleshing out the outline until it's a full essay. Rather than trying to force the text/information to fit your initial thesis, do as science does. Develop a new thesis. The initial idea and readings are your thesis and research. Your paper is the results, and the final thesis, your conclusions based on those results. We just present them as conclusions, then results that back them up. A thesis with quotes to back it up. Also, treat your reader as slightly dim. You have to give them a trail of breadcrumbs to reach the same conclusion. That's why you have to write so much analysis and explanation after your quotes. Story 32. Take your lecture notes and condense them as soon after the lecture as you can. You'll be going through the notes, committing them better to memory, and you'll be preparing your revision notes to make for a much easier time when you need to sit your exams. If you're that way inclined, you can also turn a pretty penny selling them to desperate peers if you need. It takes discipline, but it's so worth it. Story 33. Not every class requires the textbook, even if they say they do. Seriously, it might take a couple of classes to start getting the right feel for it, but you can start being able to immediately tell whether or not a class 100% requires the text. Usually you can get the text or required readings online or in some other form. I say this as an English major. I assume that most STEM stuff probably isn't as freely published online. But yeah, seriously, don't buy the textbook unless it's absolutely fundamental that you need it. And never buy it from the school bookstore and never rent it. You can always sell it online for a lower profit deficit than you rented it for. Story 34. If you have societies on campus, join as many as you can, even ones that don't really interest you very much, but have friendly committees and members. I'm a member of societies that would make people be like, what the hell, you like that kind of stuff? But you see, societies are more about connections and events. Right here where I study, societies host events that often give you free food, saving money, and make your friend circles very large and very diverse. When I graduate, I will have connections not just in my field of study, but with people from all the schools in my uni. Well, sorry introverts, you're out of luck on this one. That includes me too, by the way. I can't imagine doing this. Story 35. Former student here. When you have to write a really long paper, gather up all of your sources and pull any quote you think you may use. Color code the quotes in a Word doc based on the area/arguments/points you want to make. Start building out paragraphs of your point around these quotes. Write the intro and ending last. If having trouble starting the whole thing, write the intro first. I wrote 20+ page papers the day before they were due using this method and got A+ on them. Story 36. The best advice anyone ever gave me for college is, act like an adult so you may demand to be treated like one. Learn to dress professionally, file your own taxes, show up to your commitments, eat healthy, balance your schedule, know and follow the law, and make your own doctor's appointments. You're not an angsty 15-year-old anymore, you're legally an adult, and if you act like it, you should be afforded the privileges of an adult. You're allowed to stand up for yourself, apply for whatever jobs you want, spend your own free time how you like, hang out with who you like, and generally make your own goddamn decisions without being required to report to anyone else. Really changed my perspective. It's so easy to let others treat you like a child, especially if it's all you've ever known. But it's important to learn to choose for yourself and demand those choices to be respected. Oh no, I don't remember the last doctor's appointment I set, to be honest. I really gotta do that. Hopefully this is a reminder for some of you too. Being an adult's hard, man. Story 37. Not really a life hack, but as someone who just finished his last year at school, here's some advice. Don't be afraid to do anything. When I was in year 8, 7th grade, the head boy, senior valedictorian, said something in his speech that stuck with me for the rest of my time at school. You'll never regret the things you do, only the things you don't do. While you could cynically dissect and refute this, I think the sentiment is one worth holding on to at school and beyond. Take those chances. Seize those opportunities. Spend that time with your friends because, trust me, you'll miss it. Even the ones you stay friends with for life, you'll miss those school days you spent together. Ask that girl or boy out because, trust me, the worst possible outcome is that you never do it. Let them in. Let others in. Show them that even though you're a young, impressionable school kid, you're a wonderful person with a bright road ahead. And though that road is long and winding and beautiful, don't forget that these golden days and nights of youth and curiosity and growing and pain and joy will stick with you for the rest of your journey. But they're a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so don't miss it. Story 38. If you are in community college and taking courses online, try and get one class done per day throughout the week. Even if that results in staying up really late, it does pay off. I am taking 4 classes right now, and my usual plan is to get everything due that week for one class done on Monday, then another class done on Tuesday, and so on. By the time that it's Friday, I have nothing to turn in, my work is completed, and I just made myself a free 3-day weekend. Story 39. Save all of your papers on Google Drive. There's a good chance you'll be able to reuse the same paper for a different class. I would change/add a paragraph to an old paper to make it a comparative piece, and sometimes I would just reuse that same paper as is for another class if the professor let us choose the topic. Google Drive is free to use and you can access it anywhere that has the internet. Has literally saved me hours of my life. Story 40. Introduce yourself to your professor. It's hard to fail a face. Going to office hours if you have questions is always best. Just don't waste their time. If you think you need more time on a project, ask. I've had it a few times where 3 to 4 big projects all fall within the same 2 days. One of the projects was smaller and not team-based, so I emailed my prof for a day extension. She said, yeah, no problem. Just don't do it day of. A few days in advance is always best. Set up and use a OneDrive account or something similar. I've had computer issues where my laptop died the morning of a due date. Luckily, I was able to get a 2-day extension and had a previous draft saved there. Show up early, ask smart questions, and don't just sit in the back messing around on your phone. You are paying to be there. It, more often than not, is your money. You wouldn't spend $10,000 on a vacation and the morning of not go, so don't do that with school. Teachers do not work for you. They work for your future employer to make sure their new employee has the proper knowledge. If you think in the first couple days your prof is crazy, drop the class. I've had my fair share of crazy professors and only once did I have to withdraw. I had a feeling on the second day but kept with it. Cost me time and money. Use Rate My Professor. If a professor has a low rating, take it later or at least sign up with them and try to switch sections during a drop. Find out what works for you. This is kind of vague, but if flashcards are your gold standard, make them. For me, it was typing all my notes, printing them out, and then retyping them. And find time to have fun. But make sure you are not finding time to do work. School is the priority, but don't let it take up your whole life. Story 41. Honestly, TA/office hours are practically a hack in college. They answer all of your questions and even help you on homework, prepare for tests, etc. Hell, sometimes I would go in there and sit to do my homework and just ask questions as I go. A lot of the time, they're just happy a student cares enough. From my experience, they're more than happy to help, even if you aren't truly struggling with the material. Story 42. Read all of your assignments out loud to yourself. You'll catch more weird syntax, places where you started one sentence and finished another, places where your argument isn't clear, etc. Also, if you have to breathe in the middle of a sentence, it's too long. I've seen people do this with books they're writing because it just works so well. Lecturers are routinely bored out of their mind during office hours because no one shows up. Go bug them if there's anything you aren't sure about. If the door's shut, knock loud. If you're sick, anxious, or weird crap has happened in your life that might hold up an assignment, talk to your TA or lecturer early. The sooner they know what's going on, the more they can do to help you. If you don't talk to them until the day before it's due, you might get a small extension which really won't help you much. These people want you to win at this class, so let them help you. Story 43. I'm a TA/PhD student. Here are my tips. You've probably heard many of these before. Go to every class, even if you spend half the time on Reddit. Profs will give hints and explain things in different ways than what you'll get from the slides. Too afraid to ask a question during lecture? Go to office hours and ask it. We're frequently sitting there alone. Did you get something wrong on a test or assignment? Go into office hours and ask them to go over the question with you and learn how not to make that mistake in the future, even if it is the only question you got wrong. Apply for any interest-free student loans and grants even if you don't need them. They're good to fall back on if you need them, and you can invest them to make money. Then you just return them on the last day of no interest and keep any money you made from it. I applied for student loans from my home province, Ontario, Canada, and they're giving me $9,000 a year in grants that I don't have to pay back, and $11,000 a year in loans I don't pay interest on until after I graduate. I can survive without any of it, so I use the grants to buy a car and I'm investing the loans. Don't treat loans like free money. You will have to pay it back with interest. Switch programs early if you don't like yours or you notice there are no job prospects. Sure, it might take an extra year, but if you get a better job, it'll be worth it. Stay active. Make friends with people that like to do things. If you don't like the gym, try sports instead. If you have the opportunity to do a co-op or internship, paid, do it. It will get you experience in your field and some money. I was in a co-op program and I graduated with almost 2 years of work experience and it paid for everything. I actually came out having made money. And this is probably the hardest one, but treat school like a full-time job. If you aren't spending at least 40 hours a week in class, working on assignments, studying, you should probably reevaluate. If you work 8 hours a day, your weekends will be free. Get up at a reasonable time, 10 a.m. is too late, and get some work done. The easiest thing to do is make a cup of coffee and sit at the kitchen table and read your lecture slides for the day. When you go to class, it will be the second time you see it, and it will make it easier to follow along. If you don't get the slides in advance, read the textbook chapter. Don't waste time. That hour you spent at the library on Reddit between classes doesn't count towards your hours worked that day. If you manage your time during the day, you will get all your work done and be free when your friends want to do stuff. Make time for your mental health. Find what makes you relax and do it. This might be sports, yoga, meditation, board games, or even just Netflix. Reduce your stress and clear your mind. Call your parents. It doesn't have to be every day, but set aside half an hour once or twice a week. They'll love it and it will let you relax. Talk to them about what you learned, what you're working on, your concerns, and just life in general. You can't do better than your best. So just do your best, not anyone else's. There will always be people smarter than you who get better grades. Don't worry about them. If you're doing your best, truly doing your best, there is no need to worry. And lastly, don't be afraid to drop out and learn a trade. The trades pay surprisingly well and are in demand. I had a friend who tried college and just couldn't make it. I mean, he wasn't stupid, it just wasn't for him. Then he found welding and is doing amazing. He loves it and gets paid really well. Another friend had a similar thing. He just couldn't make college work, but he was a really smart guy. He dropped out and got a job, worked his way up and was doing very well. He got laid off because the company was going under and he now started his own. It isn't easy and he works hard, but he's starting to make good money. I feel like that last one isn't one we've seen enough. Dropping out is a very viable action one can take. There are many paths in life that don't require university or college degrees. And yeah, the trades are super in demand. If you're doing university or whatever and you're finding it just doesn't work for you, find something that does. I promise you, no matter what you've been told in your life, it is not the only path at all. Story 44. Spend all weekend, every weekend for a month filling out scholarships. Literally all weekend, 20 hours, filling out scholarship applications. Write 10 to 15 generic essays to modify as needed. You will acquire these as you go anyway, so you don't have to start out with them, but can pick up if you need one that you can't make out of others. Then apply to anything you might be tangentially related to. Minority, apply to everything you can under your minority, then minority plus major. Then just under your major or career choice. If you're white, apply to your background, plus your career or major like Irish engineers. Apply to local scholarships to your town, state, region. Apply to your favorite companies or hobbies. Even if you don't get money, they may send free gear, which is just as good. Apply to ones you're not qualified for anyway. You may not get full awards, but you may get partial awards. Any money you get left over after tuition is paid is yours to keep. Thousands of scholarships go unfulfilled because no one applies for them. Yeah, it sucks filling stuff out for a while, but it'll pay off when you get $5,000 in your pocket each semester because you were the only one to apply to Native American physicists with animal last names who are also competitive cyclists and have little dongs. I didn't necessarily qualify, but I stretched the truth and said it was little and not micro and got some cash. Story 45. I was a really crappy student in undergrad. I wouldn't study except the day before, didn't take many notes, etc. I had a cumulative GPA of 2.13 in undergrad, which has come to bite me because I've decided to go back for my master's 15 years later, and most of those schools have a GPA requirement of at least 3.0. Luckily, I wrote an appeal after being denied, and now I'm enrolled, and it is my goal to get A's in all my classes. Only taking one at a time, so that helps too due to work and family. I try to take a couple hours a day to go upstairs, away from noise and distraction, and really knock out some work, get the reading done, etc. I currently have a 97 in the class. I know everyone is different, but just apply yourself, and you will do worlds better than if you model yourself after 15 years ago me. Story 46. I don't see many real life hacks, just general advice, so I have an actual student life hack here. So senior year I discovered a way to, quote, study. It wasn't cheating, just a little shady. Senior year was my best in terms of grades, and I spent the least effort studying that year. Every time a test was coming up, I'd email the class and suggest we split up the textbook and everyone would summarize one chapter. In exchange, everyone who contributed would get a copy of everyone else's summaries. The idea was a hit, and people would start volunteering for chapters. I would pick the most studious students and never assigned myself a single chapter. So basically, I had a curated summary of test materials sent to me by the top students for every class. I'd put them all together and send out to the contributors, and could now spend 2 hours studying for a test and be fine. Again, maybe a little unethical, but damn did it work. Story 47. Obviously ask for permission before doing this, but I've never had a professor or instructor refuse. Record audio or video if you have the storage space of every important lecture you attend. Bonus points for creating chapters with titles for easier reference. Note-taking is still a very helpful must, but there will be profs you can't keep up with, and maybe you're not the fastest keyboard jockey/handwriter. But I promise, even the most efficient note-taker will benefit from this exercise. Story 48. If you have to cite, use Google. You can click the quotation marks in Scholar and it gives you all the formats. It also copies and pastes into your document in the correct font and size for academia. Don't use generators, they suck. Learn a bit about your lecturers, pick the best sounding one, and ask if you can help them with any of their research. Come third year, you'll automatically be in their good book for a dissertation spot with them. Often the popular lectures fill up quickly and they can pick who they want and don't. If you get a long freaking assignment, make yourself write 200 to 300 words a day with it. It takes about half an hour to an hour to write a quality piece of work that length. Within a week, you have 1,500 words and you feel like you've barely invested any time in it. If you have any medical issues that affect your exam performance, speak to student support. Providing you're not lying, they'll get you take-home exams. You get given 3 questions to answer, 2,000 words each, and 5 days to do it as you would any normal piece of work. May vary depending on uni and subject. Some people find this more stressful, but I loved it. Don't skip lectures. When it comes to exam season and revision, I promise you'll get a question and you'll think, when the hell did we do that? When you get home from lectures, have a reread through of your notes, or at least do it before you go to a lecture. The amount of times I sat down to a lecture and the lecturer goes, "Who remembers what we did last week?" and I went blank, unreal. No matter how good your mentality is, always sit near the front. If you're 40 rows towards the back, you will at some point succumb to being able to get away with crap and start texting or chatting. By the way, if you chat in lectures, throw yourself out, scumbag. Or worse, sleep. If you're a dyslexic student and have the choice between a dictaphone or a note-taker, take the dictaphone. I had a note-taker and I slacked off so much. When I got into my 3rd year, I had to tell her not to send me notes until exam season. Use correct language when emailing your lecturer. Don't email a lecturer going, "Hi, Anthony." They probably won't even bother to read past the first line, let alone respond. Okay, well, that last one is a little more subjective. Personally, then this might just be theater school, admittedly, but I had a lot of professors who were totally cool with being called by their first name, even preferred it. Really, this falls under a lot of other tips given in this thread, just to get to know your professors, learn how they want to be referred to, and just talk with them like that. Story 49. Learn how to actually take notes. Whether concept maps or Cornell notes, my personal fave. Modify the note-taking system so it actually works for you. Use the calendar on your phone as an actual calendar. It doesn't matter what system you use, whether Google Docs, OneNote, or whatever, but keeping your notes organized and easily accessible eliminates one-step laziness. Not all of it, but still. I used to regularly record my lectures in college. As a high school teacher now, I can't recommend good note-taking habits enough. Story 50. I finished my PhD this year, and despite being a fairly lazy student with mental health problems, or maybe because of it, I've defined a few key points to success that I wish I could tell all freshmen, which I could while I was teaching undergrads, but they probably all ignored it. 1. Remember how much you're paying to be here. This is the only time you'll have this much access to this much learning resource and this many of your peers. Make the most of it. 2. Learn to reference properly. You'll be given a handbook which you'll largely ignore, but inside it'll show you how to reference sources properly. Doing this properly in your first year will already put you head and shoulders above your peers with a little effort. 3. Never reference Wikipedia ever. It's fine for lay research, but at a university level it's not sufficiently deep or critical to be used in written work. 4. Participate in class. This isn't high school. No one's going to think you're a dork for taking part, and you'll get a lot more out of the class. 5. Exercise regularly. A healthy body is hard to maintain in college, but exercise is good for your mental and physical well-being. 6. Set up an off-site VPN supported by most university networks in the UK, and or set up Eduroam. It's not difficult, and you'll be able to do library research, including reading papers and e-textbooks from your bed. 7. Peer learning is the stuff. If you find people you like in your classes, form a study group. With resources like Google Docs, you can collaborate to take notes and revise together. This pays off hugely, even if you consider yourself an independent learner, as you'll still get notes if you skip class, and you can also collaborate on tough coursework. Story 51. Don't buy the goddamn textbook, unless the teacher tells you straight up that you'll be graded out of it. Textbooks are the sketchiest crap ever in the college world, and most teachers are required to have a textbook and required to tell you to get it. As a biology major, pretty much the only textbook I ever had to get was one for stats. For chem, you needed a code that came with the book, but you could still get crap for cheaper from just buying the code. I did not need a textbook for a single biology class, regardless of what my professors said. Many professors will try to avoid straightforwardly telling you if you need to buy the textbook. It gets harder to find crap online as you get into the higher levels of classes, but it's still out there. Textbooks are a freaking scam with the amount of information available online. Story 52. More for college. Make friends with someone who takes good notes, and try to take good notes yourself. If one of you misses a day, you can make an agreement to take notes for them, and vice versa. I did a summer course on college algebra, and one of my classmates was starting a new job that required a lot of training, and he missed several days. Summer courses are very fast-paced, and I took notes and recorded YouTube videos explaining the more complicated parts. We both passed with A's. Taking notes for myself has always been difficult to be motivated about, but when I knew someone else was relying on me to succeed, it made it a whole lot easier. OP, I salute you and the service you did for that person. You may have absolutely saved them in that class. They're lucky to have you. And also, yeah, it was helpful for you too, but seriously, I can only imagine. Story 53. Oh boy, do I have a bunch of tips for you. Take study skills class if your school offers it. Counts as an elective, is worth 3 credits, is extremely easy, and will teach you a lot about study skills and time management. Get a dry erase board for your room and put your assignments for each week on it. I also keep a calendar erase board for the month too. Planners are great too, especially if you have both, but you'll definitely be more likely to look at a big board. Use Quizlet to study for your tests. It's truly the best way to ace a test. It's even likely you'll find the exact flashcards already made for your class. If you work and are able to study there, do it. You will be making money while you study. If you're super lucky, you'll have your homework/studying done by the time you get off and have all that time to do whatever you want. If you're having a really hard time understanding something, make a colorful diagram. It'll look cool and you'll remember it when the test comes. Use colors in your notes. Don't overdo it, just keep it light and it'll be more interesting. When you get your syllabus, immediately write down all of your test dates for each class. Look at it every week or two. You'll never have a test sneak up on you. If you don't want to read the whole chapter, most books have an outline at the end of it. It normally works as a study guide. Skip classes wisely. If you choose to skip, don't skip a class right before test. You could be missing something important. If you have a legal way of doing this, Adderall. Oh man, if you aren't motivated, lazy, or just don't want to do anything, it's a lifesaver. I took a lot to study for midterms today, and that's why this is so long. Proof Adderall creates focus. Just narrator's note. Don't go out there getting prescription drugs that you don't necessarily need. I understand. Adderall has its uses. It can be really good. Just, be careful out there, guys. Story 54. If you're a college student, the best advice is to give a small, reasonable gap between classes if you can. 45 minutes or more. You might hate this and think of it as wasted time. No. Do your damn homework during that time period and you will be cutting down on your overall work tremendously. When we're home, we have so many distractions which keep us from doing work. At school, just go to the library and go straight to work. This seriously saved me from failing. Well, this thread came a little late for me personally, considering I've been out of university for just a couple years now, but hopefully this is helpful for some of you, maybe going into university or currently in it. That being said, that last one was the final story of the day. So for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.